It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Today, we have with us the beautiful and wonderful Carolynne Melnick. She is a gifted teacher, spiritual coach, and intuitive who has always known that there was more to life than which could be seen, understood, or touched. She's a professional educator with a Bachelor of Education and I don't know what MA stands for.
Master of Arts.
Master of Arts with over 25 years of experience as an intuitive coach, a Spring Force Qigong trainer, and healer and a shaman. Over the years, she has guided many individuals to transform their lives using Qigong and a deeper understanding of the nature of thought. You know, this guidance has helped others deal with stress, anxiety, and a major illness, grief, and being overwhelmed by life. Whew. That is quite a mouthful.
You definitely didn't waste your life. That sounds amazing. That sounds so cool.
Oh, I guess I did it.
Well, not to mention, what it doesn't say on there is how much you have traveled and been to like corners of the world that most people would avoid. Right?
That's right.
And it also doesn't say on there that you're an amazing storyteller, writer.
I love storytelling.
I get, it can get too long. It's like all these things that expands your bio. And but yeah, I have traveled a lot. I've basically hit 5 of the 6 continents. Been in over 80 countries, and I lived on several continents as well. So I used to call myself a global gypsy. This gypsy has settled down a bit since 2009, but for 30 years I just wandered the globe, working as an international educator and not an international educator. Sometimes I took year-long breaks or 2-year-long breaks and just put my backpack on and just went.
Honestly, that made me tear up. I don't even know why. That is so cool. I like that is so awesome.
Yes, and as a mother, that freaks the crap out of me if this is inspiring you, my daughter.
Inspiring. That is amazing. That sounds great.
I will tell you that I'm quite equal in age to my nieces and nephews, right? And my oldest niece is just a few years younger than I am. And when her brother decided that he wanted to follow his aunt, it freaked out my whole family. But he didn't do it to the same extent that I did.
Well, everyone wants an amazing story, so
yeah, well, if it's an inspiration, like for me, it's more about stepping out of your comfort zone, taking a step, because over the years, I've had so many people tell me that I'm brave, I'm courageous. I don't feel I'm brave. I don't feel I'm courageous. I just always took the next step.
And tried.
And I listened to my inner voice. I listened to that voice within me that I started to hear when I was 15. Like I heard a voice loud and clear, 15 or 16, can't quite remember, but a voice loud and clear that told me I was going to live and work overseas. And I knew it without a doubt. And I have to tell everybody that was during the early 70s, late 60s. And no, I wasn't on any substances. It was just sitting outside in the garden. And I just followed that. And it was interesting because as I kept that as my focus, doors began to open. And this is where my learning came in to help others, is that when we listen to that, I do courses now called Guided by Insight, because I've always been guided by insight. If I feel a pull to do something, for me, it's not bravery, it's just following that pull to do something. You take the steps. And one step leads to another step, leads to another step, leads to another step. And for me, it became, 30 years of steps.
Right. And, your sharing of, you just knew without a shadow of a doubt that you were just going to travel the world. And, one of the clearest moments that I had that I can remember at this moment, there's many moments, there can be many moments like that where without a shadow of a doubt, like that, I guess that I would call that faith, like absolute faith, is that actually when I had my daughter, I met you, Amaja. I knew my circumstances were not perfect. I wasn't like, head over heels in love, with your bio dad, and things were not awesome between the two of us. I was making a very low wage job. I had some debt that I had, and I just knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I would be okay. Have your child. You're going to be okay.
Yeah. And it's that feeling, because when it's right, you feel it in your body. And this is what I share with so many people, is that we really need to listen to our body. Because if you were sitting there and you're going, should I do this? Should I do that? Maybe this, maybe that. What if, then it's not right. Because there's too much doubt and you got constriction in your body. But when it's that moment and you go, yeah, and you feel your body just lighten up, it's a lightness, it's a joy that comes out, and you just, it's just a whole different feeling. So I know for myself that whenever I start getting into too many questions in up here, about something, leave it alone. Just leave it alone and see what happens. And if it's meant to happen, it will come about and you'll feel good about it. But if it's not meant to happen, let it go.
So, things that just, as you're saying that, one of the things that come up, because the nature of, of the theme of, us being here is because, Cash Smart for Life. This is a program that Amaji and I, are bringing to the world. And, as, for your life experience, traveling over 30 different countries, living and immersing yourself in different cultures, right? Like, Amaji and I have only known North America, right? And what that's like here. But there's nothing like immersing yourself in so many different places, having conversations with people from, many other parts of the world. And so I'm just curious, like, over the past 30 years, what's kind of like your overall feeling about money and the philosophy you have around money? That's what I'm curious about.
It's definitely shifted and changed over the years. Like everything else, we don't stay stable, we don't stay stationary, we grow, we progress, we regress. We have all those cycles in life. And when I left Canada in 1983, I had a career. I was an educator, and if I had stayed in Canada, I would have had what Canadians call security, right? And I chose a different path. Like I chose to go overseas. My very first job was with an aid agency in Canada with QSO, and I was a volunteer, and I was making a local teacher's salary, which is kind of the equivalent at that time, about $400 or $500 a month, and not paid in hard currency. Okay, paid in Naira that you can't spend anywhere else in the world, right? But during that particular time, like, I've always believed that I will always be taken care of financially. I will always be, all my needs will always be taken care of. Even in my darkest moments, I still knew I would be taken care of. And so my early years of living overseas, I just trusted. And I tell people today that, when I lived in Nigeria on that nothing salary, I went to Kenya twice. I went to Togo, and I went to the UK. I have no memory of where that money came from. I don't remember how I got the money, the hard currency to go to these places. So, there's an element of trust in my life. And as I progressed a little bit further and got more into the international schools, then, I started to be a little bit more cautious about savings, that kind of thing. And so, I met a financial advisor and did some investments and those kinds of things. So over the years, I've done that. To me, money has just it's been easy. It's been an easy flow. There are times when I've gotten really close to not having any. I after a year of backpacking from Nigeria all the way to Thailand, at the end of the year, I was down to about $150. Yes, I had a credit card. I could have bought a ticket home. Yes, I did. My credit card was always my insurance policy. It was not for goods. It was not for anything. For me, it was my insurance policy. And so, but like the night my friend, the lady I was traveling with, she went back to Canada. And that night we were walking down the street in Bangkok. I look up and it said teacher wanted. And I walked in and he says, "Can you start tomorrow?" And I said, "No, I can't start tomorrow. I'm taking my friend to the airport. I'll start the next day." Okay. So, and within 6 months, oh no, 10 months, after 10 months in Thailand and working semi-illegally, all right, getting my bits and pieces of my story semi-illegally. I left Thailand with $6,000 in my pocket. US.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, like there's been different parts of my life where I've had security. I've had those things that people call security, because there is no security in life. It can be pulled out from under us really quick. And I know that experience as well too. So, over the years, all this transpired. And then coming back to Canada, I came back to Canada. I did, and in 2004, I left my career. I left my so-called beautiful job and everything else, much to my family's chagrin. Like, what the hell are you doing now? And I took off to Peru, and that's when I started worked with shamans. And again, this insight, this what I call an insight, led me to start a little company where I was leading spiritual tours, and I was living off the spiritual tours and as well as the money that I saved. Okay. So then I get, bring me back to Canada in 2009. Again, I got a job, kind of just happened. Like it just happens to me. I don't know. And then the great thing was I was in a place where I needed some financial advice. And at a meeting, your Holistic Earth meeting, who should show up but Winnie. And all she gave was a 15-minute talk. And it was interesting because I had been talking to other financial advisors at that particular time, but nothing felt 100% right. But in that 15 minutes, there was something, and I have no idea what it was at the moment, but there was something that you said, Winnie, that went, I have to talk to this lady. Mm. And that has changed my view of finances. That has changed my view of life. I've never liked the so-called banks or, certain things because, yeah, many reasons. But, it seems like there's no winning with a bank. There's no gaining with the traditional forms of the financial forms.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we don't even need to go down that road. There's much evidence already that people can find every day about that. Yeah. And, I'm glad because, since then we've had many conversations, but, just purely from the standpoint of, I like, well, I'm also curious. Imagine, as you're listening to all of this, I'm curious about your perspective as you're listening to, Carolynne's life experience up to this point. What comes up for you?
Just that I feel like the more podcasts you and me do or anything, I'm just gaining like so much insight into different women's just lives and all that. And I don't know, I'm definitely getting excited. I'm actually getting quite emotional. This is really, I think that you lived like an amazing life, and then hearing about everyone's financial stories, because everybody's financial story is so different and everyone's view on money is completely different. Like all my peers around me around the same age, everybody has a different view on money. Typically, I think at my age, people think that money's kind of like just like really like a hassle and kind of evil in a way. Like if you're not the richest like young adult, and you don't really like other people who are like super rich young adults. Like, so everyone's view around money, I'm really excited to learn. And so far yours sounds like it's been pretty easy going. So
Well, I think what I need to point out in this particular moment is the fact that um, we're not talking about dollars and cents here. We're talking about the unseen energy around money, that we're talking about, like just a sense of knowing that you're going to be taken care of, right? And it's like, and it's not, again, not in the form of cents and dollars, but sort of like the moment where, oh, you're walking around, it's the day before your friend's leaving, and you see a sign that says a teacher's wanted, you know what I mean? And then you get that position, which equates to access to funds, which means access to having the funds to exchange for whatever it is that you want to experience in life, right? So there's that part. And then inevitably, though, one of the things that is also very inspiring as I speak with you, is that you do walk about your presence is empowered, right? Despite the fact, and this is maybe because you've lived everywhere in the world, and your sense of like not knowing that you can have a very experience rich life, and not necessarily that doesn't mean that you had thousands of dollars sitting in your account. I mean, you had lots of experience with very little money. But also, I know that, like you said at the very beginning, things really change. Like our philosophy around money really changes. And as I get more mature in my experience with talking with people around money, right? It's been just over 10 years now. I find that, humans in the age category nearing 60 and 70. Now, security, like you said, isn't, you've trained yourself to get to a place where, there's no such thing as security. It's completely an illusion. Mm-hmm. But it's not an illusion for a lot of people. And because it's not an illusion for a lot of people, it really creates this tension, this stress. And so, for those that feel like they, that are in the later age category, there's a really heavy sense of, I should have planned a lot sooner. Well, I didn't learn. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Like, so they're like, all of a sudden it's like, they're shitting all over themselves. And, so yeah, like, so what would you, I guess, oops, there's me trying to keep us on track, but I'm gonna go. I guess the question is like, what could you offer, as a, from peer to peer?
In 2004, when I decided to leave my career, and I was sitting in a very wonderful position. I was making a huge amount of money. And there was, I could have stayed there for the unforeseeable future. And yet I wasn't content. And I knew that it was time for me to get out. That was the hardest decision I made, because I went through a security crisis where I kept thinking, well, oh my gosh, like, okay, yes, I've got this amount of money in this and this and this and this, but I'm heading off. I don't know where I'm going, and yet I also knew that behind me, I had all those years of experience that I could come back if I needed to. So I had that sort of little bit of a lifeline. But yet I went through a real security crisis. And what amazed me is coming back to Canada, because I lived in so many different places, and a lot of them were third world countries, or what we label as third world countries. Sometimes I don't agree with that at all. But, people in those countries, they don't worry about their old age. They have families that take care of them. That's what a family's for, is the family takes care of them. And it's not and they're seen as elders and they're respected and the rest of it. I come back to Canada, and all the people in my age group are, all they're thinking about is their pension. And it's such a like retirement. The word retirement for me, my view of retirement is retire. I've never been tired. Why would I want to retire? Okay.
Like, why would I want to get tired over and over and over again?
Over and over again. That's how I view it. Okay. That's my view. Why would I want to retire? If I'm doing what I love, I'm doing what excites me, then I don't need to, then that need is gone. But when I watch so many of my peers, people I went to school with, that I reconnected with and stuff, and there's so much fear. There's so much fear around this, not having enough. And yet in my view, it's that, but then again, I've had that inner knowing from the time I was young, is that I know I will always be taken care of. And we are, if we allow ourselves to relax, if we allow ourselves to get beyond those fears. And it's not easy. And I'm not saying it's easy. I've had moments of fear. I've had moments of, like I've lost everything twice, and not by my choice. Okay. I let everything, except in one case, everything except what I had in a suitcase. Okay. So, for about short, and again, it was one of those situations where in a short period of time, my world turned right around and I got a job and I kept going. But it's that trust, and it's trusting in something greater than ourselves. And it's that source within you. It's not something outside of you. When you can trust that source within you, and that's what I call guided by insight. The insight comes from inside, that source of trust within you. You take the steps. When I came back to Canada, and I was caregiving for my sister in the first couple of years I was back, and it was very challenging and very difficult. And I knew I needed to get out of the house a little bit. So I started to look for a job. Like I had a couple of interviews. I knew what I didn't want to do, right? I didn't want to get back into traditional teaching as a high school teacher. And yes, I interviewed for a couple of places, and I thought, no, I don't want to do that. And yet, so I let it go. Again, you don't force it. You don't push the envelope, is what I say, or push the wall, because it's a wall. A friend of mine came in from Vancouver, where we were sitting outside, where she was having a smoke, sitting on the curb, talking outside her sister's place. And she goes, "Oh, you looking for a job?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I'd like something to do, in the evening so I can get out of the house." She said, "Okay, let's go back upstairs and talk to my sister." That's how I got in the Link program that I'm in right now. Her sister guided me. Like, she was on medical leave, but she says, "Here's all the information. Contact these people. I will give you a recommendation."
Boom.
A month later, I had a job. Like, this has been the pattern of my life, because it's trust. It's trust in that, we are connected to this infinite universe. We're connected to everything, not just this little tiny itty bitty planet in the whole universe. We are connected to the entire bit of creation, everything. We have all that wisdom from the beginning of whenever to now within us. And when we can stop the noise in our head and our should-haves and our want tos, and I don't like, and I like, and I think I have to, if we take all of that messiness out of it and just go still, you can never stop your thinking. Don't ever try. That's a waste of time and energy. All right. But you can still it. You can make it so that it's like white noise back here. All right. So when you get into that stillness, you know what to do. You know what to do. And sometimes you take one tiny step out of your fear, one step behind that wall of fear, and things will open up for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's taking the first little step beyond that wall of fear. And yeah, I've had walls of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not perfect. I'm not, I'm not a guru. I'm not perfect. I still have moments. But my fear lasts, only about that long now.
I love it so much. Imagine, I feel like you're going to say something.
Well, all this is making me just come back. You're talking about taking little steps, whereas like my mom always just taught me to just try. So that's what I kind of do, the first little step. So even now, being 21, the one thing that I do a lot that I actually realize most people don't do is just try. You just have to try. So then for me, the more things you try, the more capable you feel. And for me at my age, feeling capable feels, I don't know, capability is something I definitely feel like I have a lot at my age. So now it's try, capable, trust. So trust is like the third step of like just trusting that you now know that you're super capable and that everything will come to you. And so now it's try, capable, trust for me now.
Okay, I'm sorry. That word is driving me bonkers. That word try.
Why? What?
Because, okay, sorry. Complete sidestep here.
Okay, I know that you always say
attempt, because try, not, know are like cancellation words. Remember?
So? I think try is like a great one.
Let me put it this way for you, okay? If I put $100 bill in front of you right now, and I say, it's yours, all you have to do is pick it up. Are you going to try to pick it up, or are you just going to bend down and pick that thing up?
See, my mom always said when I said try too, she's like, no, you don't try, you just do. So I do get where that's making her bonkers. So.
Yeah. Just remember that $100 bill lying on the floor. Are you just gonna leave it? Are you gonna try, or are you just gonna,
I'm just gonna do. I'm just gonna do.
Pick it up and go shopping.
No, I can't go just shopping with that money. My mom would never let me. You do a portion of it, not all of it though.
No, well, however you're going to use it, but like that's like trying. To me, try, like I agree with your mom that the word try, we use try too much. I hear like a lot of the people that I mentor and then I coach, they're saying I'm trying. I'm gonna say stop trying. Just stop trying. Mm-hmm. Because trying puts up a wall. It puts up a wall. It puts up a mental wall. Every thought within us is so powerful. And that one can be a trap. It can be a trap because we get stuck in it. We get stuck in the trying instead of the doing. Just take a step. There's only two answers to life. Yes and no. Nothing in between.
Yeah. And not to take away from the original point. I mean, I got nitpicky on the word. But to come back to what you were saying, Amaja, as to, just attempt, move forward, take a chance in.
Take a step.
Yeah, take a step is really what you were attempting to say.
And I like your progress. Take a step, see what it happens, trust. And I love that you've added the word trust to it now, because, the trust part is so powerful.
I really feel like I definitely trust myself because I feel like I am so capable. So once you feel capable, you're just like, I could do this. I could really take on anything. It's good. So trust is, definitely something I'll always be working on. But I feel so fortunate.
And we might have to like cut this particular session up into like a few different subject matters. It almost feels like
branching it.
Well, because there's so many things that we covered here. We covered perspective, faith, like the energy of all that. And now I can't help but want to dig into this conversation just a little bit more. A part of where it's leading me just in that sheer desire of wanting to also know as it relates to our, not just the relationship we have with money, but then when we get into um, a relationship with someone else, like when we're cohabitating, with in partnership with someone, right? I lost when I started living out on my own, it was great. Um, I was with Imaja's bio dad for 3 years in total, only about 1 year after she was born. And then I was single for, a couple of years in between and managing that. Then I brought Imaja's dad into her world, who's a wonderful, wonderful dad. And so grateful. I know she's grateful. I'm grateful that, and even though we're no longer together, that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the interesting journey that I have with Imaja's dad is that, somewhere in between, even though I had like all this life experience of living on my own prior to meeting with him, for over 11 years. Oh yeah, I can take care of my daughter. I can take care of me, no problem. And then when I got into partnership, it was like, and I was with him for about 10 years, I had lost faith in my own ability to 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 know. It's like there was a part of me when things weren't going so well, I kept thinking, oh, I don't think I could do this. I don't think I can do this on my own. Like, living expenses have gone up. I don't know if I can look after her. I don't look at if I can look after me, and then I know that I'm not the only person. It doesn't, regardless of me being a woman or not, I know that there's some like man and woman can feel this way, can end up feeling this way in a partnership where they feel like they couldn't survive if they didn't have the other person. And so they end up inevitably staying in a relationship a lot longer, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
I also know that there are some women who end up, women or men, I guess, right, who end up staying in even physically abusive relationships, emotionally abusive relationships because of their I think mainly due to survival and money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not sure what life experience or what you maybe have witnessed for you, Carolynne.
I've seen that in my circle of friends and family, and I was married, but very, very young in my life, and it didn't last very long because I my vision was too big. My vision was too big for the person that I married, and I knew that even though that we didn't have any really issues, the issue was me because the world was too narrow for me. And I was blessed because when I left, I did have a career. I had a job. I was a qualified teacher. And when I left without, all I asked from my ex-husband was to make sure that my student loan was paid for, nothing else. I didn't want any of his money. I wanted to start fresh. But I was young. I was at the beginning of my career. So it's a whole different scenario. But I do know that, like even going back to I can say that you can relate that to being stuck in what I would call stuck in a marriage, or not being able to move out of a marriage, or having those fears of stepping out on your own. That's the same thing we attach to work, to jobs. People stay in jobs that they absolutely despise. And it's detrimental on them emotionally, mentally, physically, but because it's a fear of, well, I don't know if I'm going to get a job, I don't know if I'm good enough, I don't know. And it comes back down to that lack of trust within ourselves, and it's something that is, it's not always easy. It's not always easy to see, but it's what part of my mentorship and talking about people understanding the understanding thought. Okay. Most of our thinking is an illusion. Most of our thinking, if we can get beyond those programs that we have in our head, and I'm not even going to call them beliefs because they are programs. We come into this world, like I was born in Canada, you're born in Canada. We come into a perfectly made society that's going to warp, that's going to change, that we have to fit into. If you were born in India, you're born into that society you got to fit into. So we come in and, we come in at a way of a little bit of a disadvantage, because we immediately from the moment we are born, we are conditioned. So it's all this, what I call preconditioning. So it's stepping beyond that preconditioning. A lot of times people won't step out of a marriage or won't step out of a job because they're afraid of looking as a failure. They're afraid of, what are people going to think? I think it's easier today to leave a relationship than it was when I left my relationship in the 70s. It was a little bit of a stigma. And it was, I thought it took me 2 years. I was ready. It took me 2 years before I made that agreement. And yet I wasn't in a difficult situation. Mm. So I think it's, when we can understand how our thinking works, we can make changes. And if you know that most of the time, if you really pay attention to your thoughts, you'll have thoughts just come in. You'll have one, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. And, and I'm trying to think, I think it's Lao Tzu that basically, or maybe it's Lao Tzu that basically says that you don't have to invite the thoughts in for tea, let them go. And that's when you can start to be aware of what your thinking is. So really, it's the unrecognized thoughts that cause us a lot of difficulty. And that's what I do in my programs, is I get people to start paying attention to their unrecognized thoughts. Mm-hmm. And when they see that, all of a sudden there's this moment of what I call insight. And it's like, yeah. And then they say, yes, okay, I see that. Now I can do this. And it's small steps. It's small steps. I mean, I've been on this, I guess, a spiritual quest all my life, but I've spent almost 25, 30 years watching my thoughts, because I went through a period of about, 5-6 years of really serious depression. And I didn't realize that until I've come back to Canada, that how depressed I was. And where I thought, what's wrong with me? Like I used to be able to, this used to be so easy, and now why isn't it easy? And again, it's a slow process where we start beating ourselves up and getting caught up in our thinking. And when we can look at it. So what I did is and I lived in a world where the New Age movement was happening in Canada, but I didn't have any part of it because I lived on Timbuktu. No bookstores, basically in those days, no internet, right? And so I started to experiment on my own. I would, pick up one book or get some idea from someone and just experiment. So that's how I've come to this, where I am now, where, clearing that thinking, recognizing your thoughts. Mm-hmm. So yes. When we have unrecognized thoughts, we don't know. We're in habitual thinking.
Thank you for sharing that. A few things. So imagine, so there's 2 words that have now come up for me as an alternative to the word try.
Yes, Mom.
Experiment or attempt. That's another word to use.
You already said attempt, but yes.
Those are the 2 words. Sorry, I can't help it. And then there's
don't say the word but. Don't say the word like I'm not allowed to say the word but.
Yeah, like however.
Unless it represents a certain part of your body. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then because the original question was like, in relation, right? Mm-hmm. And I shared my own personal experience about like losing, faith in myself. And then I think what I hear in your response was that it was more about like checking our thoughts, I think, because quite often even our thoughts are an illusion. And yes, and that's definitely true. And I think the main theme here is what I get from you is a part of being cash smart for life is, based on what I'm hearing in your own personal journey, and also things that you've also just witnessed, right? And I mean, this isn't a small scratching the surface. This conversation, right? Is being able to get in tune with yourself, like that insight, the word insight that you keep talking about, so that you can have clarity in which step to move forward, to cut out the noise. And so, everyone here, definitely make sure to check out Carolynne's program. We're going to have, connections and links in ways, to have and start a conversation with Carolynne. Because if you want the same sort of insight, empowerment around, just being with yourself, right? And getting comfortable. You may actually have all the money in the world, but not have the same sense of peace that you are experiencing here with Carolynne today. And so I really appreciate you for saying yes, for taking the time so that Amasia and I can have a further conversation with you. I know that, I'm in gratitude for our conversation today. Amasia, is there anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, kind of going just like a little bit back to the beginning, how you were talking about how you lost your ability, Mom, like you felt like you didn't trust yourself enough and you couldn't leave my dad because you just felt like you weren't capable enough to pay for me and house and everything. I think that literally comes at so many ages, and even everyone around my age too. Like I've seen a couple people definitely go through like being in relationships and staying in them, even if they are slightly abusive, because they actually just don't know how money works or anything like that, which is really scary, because I really wish a lot of the people my age did have the confidence around money as I did, because everyone's always saying they're broke, or it's like this constant cycle. So I'd like to see a change in that.
Into the negative thinking of, I don't have enough money, I'm always broke, which just creates, just spins the rat wheel, you get on the side. But there's also people, and I was just saying with Amasia that I went through a period, my depression was that I didn't feel worthy of having lots of money. I felt guilty.
Mm-hmm.
I felt guilty for all of that. And then, and maybe it came from having lived in Nigeria where I had nothing, and lived in a village that had nothing, extreme poverty, to going to Kuwait where everybody was wealthy, and feeling guilty being in that, like, how can I be here? How can I be doing this when there's all these people around me starving and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it wasn't about what was in the world. It had to do with my own self-worth.
Yeah.
That's really interesting in the sense that I was going to say, as you start talking about that, it's like, did that have anything to do with like your peer group? Because sometimes hanging out with like our peers, there's certain type of friends that develop that, have their own financial idea or financial philosophy, like rich corporations and rich people are all, screw them, and
when I lived
screw them for having money.
I don't think so. When I lived in Kuwait, everybody was just really happy there because they were making so much money. They were enjoying their money, and I wasn't. I mean, I did to a certain extent, but not the way I could have. So I don't feel that that's what it was. I don't know. I'm not sure. I've let that go, because I don't think I feel I need to go back and revisit it, because it's kind of gone.
Right.
But there was definitely lack within me, because to me, it's lack within yourself. And it was lack within me that I didn't feel deserving for everything that I had.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to catch that a little bit, because I was like, oh my God, that's so good.
Mom, I definitely feel like everyone's different ideals, especially like around money, and at my age too. I see everyone's different, like all my friends' different ideals of money, but that's all been passed down from like what their parents thought of money, like come together to like what their ideals are. Which is crazy, because then there's like, I do feel bad for the people who were like, not feel bad, but I definitely see a change in the people who were born into like families who were broke and think money is terrible, compared to my friends who were born into like rich families and think that money is awesome, but also just like way easier to spend it. Yeah, so there's always just different. That's why the whole reason that all these conversations got brought up, Mom, is because I talked about how you grew up with parents that actually like did not know much about money or anything like that. And you didn't know anything about it, though you taught yourself about money, but not only about money, but what it does to people, and then like the systems that money even goes through, and just like, you learn so much. And then that's where I became really fortunate to just really appreciate the fact that I had a parent who just did all that, because you didn't know anything, and now I do, and now I'm passing that on to my children. Don't worry, not anytime soon, Mom, but
Oh, I'm gonna be a grandma, not anytime soon.
yeah, I know. I just put that in there because you get.
And then what happened was I started talking about, that, but it's also this, like some people get trapped in the, like I said, in the negative thinking, that I'm broke. I can't do this because I haven't got the money. So if you keep repeating that, you're continuing in a cycle. And I just brought in my experience where I felt guilty. And I think that comes down from my childhood too, because I grew up in a quite poor family. Quite a poor family. And, I was always told to not think of myself as not, or how did my dad put it? Don't go beyond your britches kind of thing. Don't expand because this is who you are, for one. My dad basically thought that I was only going to get married and have kids. Totally disappointed him. Even when I wanted to go to university, because I'm out of 7 kids, I'm the only one who went to university. Finished high school, never mind went to university. When I wanted to go to university and needed a student loan and my dad to sign, he just said, no, because you're going to get married and make babies. And I just said, no way, just sign it. Him and I had a big fight. Eventually he signed it. But I came from that concept where, you don't spend too much. You got to watch what you spend. You got to be, you got to be mindful. You can't have that. No, you can't have that. So that sense of lack. I grew up in a sense of lack, but my dad grew up during the Depression. So that's his experience that he passed on to me, my mom and my dad. So, and it depends. What have they gone through? And then they got that from their parents, because my grandparents came as refugees to Canada. So it's this whole chain. And this is what I was talking about before. We don't realize the extent of where our thoughts and our behaviors come from. They go back generations and generations and generations and generations right there. Yeah. Genesis. Yay. Yeah.
We got our first tattoo.
Cool.
So this is, I'm pointing towards this as you're talking about that, because what you're talking about, this is how the tattoo was born, because I was reading out of this book called Chase the Lion by Mark Basterson. And there's this, like, right near, I don't know, the first 50 pages, there's a paragraph or subtitled paragraph called Genesis Moments. And you're talking about, like, you never know how, one experience, one conversation shapes into the generations, And so it's sort of like you just, and sometimes even in that moment, you don't even know it's a pivotal moment, a big, massive pivotal moment, because it's not like the emotions flying anywhere. It's not like going on a first date where you really like someone and there's butterflies in your stomach. Sometimes, it's completely fly under the radar. There's moments that are so powerful that you don't even know they're powerful. Yeah.
And they can change us just like that. They can change, and especially as a young person growing up in any house, depending on the words that were used and the feeling within the house. This feeling of lack and not being good enough has been with me for a long time. And I would say only in the last 20 years have I realized I am good enough. In fact, I'm damn good. you know,
Yes.
right?
Um,
You know, and yeah, and taking that ownership and breaking down some of those walls that, again, it's not, there's nothing right or wrong with them. And it's what I said right at the beginning of our talk, is that, you know, we're born into a society, and we start, and or to a home and a society, and even a culture. You know, like each of us come from different cultures, and those cultural elements, all of that together make, you know, start to form who we become. And then it's only maybe later that we can start peeling away some of it,
Right.
or letting it. I don't like the word peeling away, because it means that we have to get rid of something. All we have to do is see it. The moment you can see what's keeping you stuck, it will no longer keep you stuck. The moment. It takes one moment to make a change.
Yep. Definitely. I 100% agree on that.
Yeah.
Like the moment I decided that my daughter and I are going to have an amazing life.
Yeah.
That's the moment everything changed.
And mine was the moment I realized that, yeah, even though I live in a village of about 300 people, you know, and I come from a poorish family. I was going to go and see the world.
Yeah.
There was no doubt.
Yeah.
And to me, those are insights.
Right.
When we have that knowing, and even if that knowing if other stuff happens, because my knowing that I was going to go and live overseas, well, I stopped and I called my marriage my sidetrack, but it gave me enough stability and tools that when I was ready to take that step to go overseas, I could take that step. So, but I only realized that, again, with a lot of it we realize with hindsight. So yes, it was a detour, but yes, it was beneficial for stabilizing who I was. Because I was, in my teenage years, in my early 20s, I was a bit of a wild thing.
No. I don't believe it.
I carried on a little bit longer than that too. It's like, okay. It resurfaced again in my late 20s and early 30s.
Exactly what I want to hear. Coming back to wrapping it up, this was the best conversation to have in the morning. It was so good.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to both of you for having me on and sharing what you have and what I have, and how we can all contribute to the well-being of someone else, whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, physical, you know, or even spiritual. You know, we're all contributing to the wellness of not only ourselves, but to each other and to everyone else. So I just want to say thank you. And my job basically now is to share what I know, and that nothing gives me more joy right now. If I can help someone to find inner peace and find some inner contentment, it's contentment. You know, there was a time when this smile hid a really ugly person. And right now this smile is genuine. And as I say, the twinkle in my eye is real. And I would love to see that in everybody.
Yes. Us too. Yes. Well, my dears, it's 11:11 right now. I think this is also a good time to maybe close on this and continue on with the rest of our day. And again, so appreciative of you.
And it's been just a joy talking to you both.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.